Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the A to Z of AI. We're really excited to welcome Steph Corey from UpLevel Ops, who's joining us today. Hi, Steph.
Hey, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Steph. And we're really excited, obviously, to have you with us and also Steph, because this episode will mark the final episode of this first season of our podcast. And I
Great.
couldn't think of anyone better to sort of close things out with us. We're really wanting to jump into all things AI. But before we do that, Steph, just for our audience, would love if you would introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I've been doing legal operations for many, many years. Started in house, worked at a couple of really big organizations in the Bay Area, and then started Clock, the networking organization, and then Link, of course, which is now part of L Suite. And so have been really immersed in legal operations for my entire career. And now we consult and we help legal teams get their operations in order.
That's incredible stuff. You went through so much rich, relevant background in a few seconds there. So all I want to say is like you are, without a shadow of a doubt, like a legend in the legal ops space. Super honored and thrilled that we get to work together via the L Suite, via legal operations. I know you were just at one of our events. So thank you for all that you do. And again, thank you for joining us. Steph, I want to take us back to a moment in time. Think around November 2022, ChatGPT, um, generative AI comes on the scene. And now fast forward to today. To kick things off, talk to us about how your work has changed in the past 3+ years because of AI.
It's dramatic. This is a before and after moment for sure. I mean, and I've been around long enough to see a lot of promises, maybe over promising and under delivering in terms of legal tech. But I will tell you the best way for me to summarize that, Anthony, is that last year, we had a busy year last year, which was, great from our perspective. And without AI, I would have needed at least two additional consultants on my team. So just with the work that we've done internally, just using AI internally to help keep us organized, help keep all of our data in order. I mean, it's been game changing for us, and we would not have been able to do the amount of work we were able to do last year without AI.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. You're talking about using AI to organize. I mean, let's get into the weeds just a little bit. What kinds of things is AI now doing for you and your team, and maybe even to some extent the clients that you're working with, that you were doing in a more hands-on or more human driven way before?
Absolutely, Zach. I'll talk a little bit about it from how we're using it because I think those use cases are relevant. But then, if it's also helpful, I'll definitely talk about what we're seeing with clients and how they're using it in legal teams. Yes. Okay. So, one of the things, I mean, client management, which I think is something obviously an organization like mine is going to need that, but it's something really anybody needs, right? And so, in terms of like, I'll just give you an example. We do a lot of assessments with clients, meaning we help them build out 2, 3 year roadmaps, right? From an org design perspective, how many, how should they structure their organization? What kind of work should they be doing? And then technology is a big piece of that. Okay, now what tech is going to support them? And so often the roadmaps that we build are 2 or 3 years. That's really common in legal operations. That's a super. We do it as consultants, but of course, in-house legal operations teams do this kind of work all the time. So when we're working with clients, sometimes we'll do 40 or 50 interviews with these legal teams. Now, before we were manually taking notes and
Yeah.
then, furiously typing, trying to remember everything trying to pay attention and then keep track of everything that
Yeah.
these folks are saying. And then later sort through everything and trying to coalesce it into, just stuff patterns, right? Where were we seeing issues and where were we seeing real pain points and where were there things that we could definitely fix versus, this is like the bureaucracy of the business, which is beyond our scope. We're not going to be able to fix
Right.
these things, right? And so now with the use of AI, well, we have an AI note taker that sits in every meeting. And now all of a sudden I can really focus on the conversation. I don't even think about note taking because it's going to capture way more than I was manually trying to capture before. And so note taking, and just in and of itself. And I know that a lot of GCs are a little nervous about having note takers sit in meetings. I think, you have to have a policy around that, what types of meetings you should
Sure.
be taking notes in, how long do you keep those notes, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, just having that as an option for legal teams or anybody is incredibly helpful. Then we create a client bot with just all of the transcripts, their, strategy. If they send us slides, right? These are, this is what we're thinking for the, we went through an exercise. We maybe did a customer satisfaction survey. So here's that. And just get that have all of that data sitting in a client specific bot. And now you have it at your fingertips to query. So I'm on the phone with the client and the general counsel starts talking to me about something and I can easily say, wait, who was it who said, this about this? And then I can say to them, well, actually, five people told us, without being naming names, of course, that, this was a real issue. So actually we're seeing this. You might not think it's a big deal, but this is really something that we should address. Like, it makes us so much smarter, so much more accurate, and being able to have this information, at our fingertips is really incredible. So from my standpoint, just it's as I get older, I think my brain works a little bit less. My memory isn't exactly what it used to be. And I don't need it to be anymore because I literally have all of this information at my fingertips. And that takes minutes to build out. I mean, this is not a complicated agentic AI. It literally takes minutes. We have somebody on our team who keeps it up to date. So every, other day or whatever, they go in, they collect all of the new information that we have. They make sure that they keep the bot up to date. And so from an operations perspective, if you're
Yeah.
doing this, we see how legal, I know I'm jumping all over, but you see how this is changing legal departments. But now you need different kinds of resources on the team. It's almost a callback to like knowledge management when we used
Yeah.
to have knowledge management players on the team, or think about how do we have knowledge management. This is knowledge management. And you really have to do that readiness work and have the content be accurate and be clean and, be available, and where it is. And then AI sitting on top of that is absolutely magical. We had a client. I think this one is great, and there's so many. You're gonna have to like make me shut up, but basically, we had a client who they had a lot of long term employees, like people who were there 30+ years, and they were going to do an early retirement program. And the general counsel was rightfully freaked out about losing all of this institutional knowledge. They had some stuff documented, but just like everybody, I mean, it was kind of, not consistent. They didn't have an SOP for every single thing that every person was doing. And so we created a knowledge capture bot for them, basically an exit interview bot for them. And so because people were leaving on great terms, they were all happy. They were planning on sailing off into the sunset with margaritas and all of that in an early retirement program. So people were very willing to participate. And what we did was we did a couple of the interviews, but we gave interview questions to the internal team so they could do more. Basically, Zach, tell me everything you're working on. Just let's have a conversation. So we're not asking you to spend 6 months before you leave documenting everything. It's literally just talking to us. We have the note taker sitting in the meeting. Well, walk me through that process. What do you do? I know there's a bunch of random things that you handle. So and so calls you. Tell me how you typically handle that. And then we walk through all of the things they're doing. You can do this over a series of multiple interviews, just depending on how much you're trying to capture. And then you've got a Zach bot. So when you're sitting on your yacht drinking your margarita, I don't have to call you and say, hey, how did you handle this? Right. I've got a bot that I can ask all these questions. And if you happen to have some things written down or presentations or SOPs, you could stick that in the bot as well. But just having that knowledge base.
So, Steph, I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, and I just want to pause on. I was excited about this conversation because, in so many ways, legal ops is in the very best position to get
Yeah.
the most out of these tools, right? Because you are, in so many ways, like the vanguard of systems thinking in the law. Like that's one of the things that legal ops does so well is get you out of your messy head, lawyers, and let's actually help you figure out, not just organize, but actually systematize the work that you're doing in this effective way. So I mean, it's great because this is such a perfect marriage where even the ways that you are using your own tools to be more effective is really adopting these foundational legal ops and systems thinking mindsets, right? I mean, it's really cool to hear. And as you say, the ways that you're deploying it are simultaneously very effective and not hard, right?
Yeah,
Like it's just like design something to solve the actual problem you're trying to solve, and you're
exactly.
getting just enormous value out of it, right?
Exactly. I mean, look, we can talk about agentic AI and what's coming and even these really complicated like our lawyer is going to be replaced by these, you know, can we really practice law using AI? All of that. And I'm like, you don't even need to go there, right? I mean, sure, agents are very promising, they're coming, all of that. But there's so many things that legal teams do that are really truly administrative. It's business, right? It's all of us, not just legal teams, every single one of us in everyday life. And so why not start with that? There's so much low-hanging fruit to tackle with these with just using, and by the way, you don't even have to buy super expensive AI tools. I mean, we're building bots out in Claude, Anthropic's Claude, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini. I mean, these are tools that I'll be very candid and say Microsoft's Copilot, the bots don't work nearly as well, and so, we've really struggled, when we work with a lot of organizations that are kind of painted into that corner, and the bots just don't work as well. There's still some things you can do with it, but not, the custom bots don't work as well, but nonetheless, these base models, really work for all of this basic stuff, and so, I'll give you another example. And Zach, one thing I like to say is like when we're talking to legal teams and even looking internally at like what can we use a bot for, we ask ourselves like, what do we hate doing?
Right.
Like, what is driving us crazy? Like, what do I feel like, oh my God, I have to do this thing again? Right. Because then there's a good chance when you just attack it from that, people are always struggling, like, what use cases. If you just start with what is driving me crazy? There's a good chance that AI can really support that, or you can find a way to automate some of that. So, another thing that we did was legal teams really struggle. Well, let me put it this way: legal should white glove a lot of the work that they do with
Mhm.
clients, right? And we want to create the space and the time for them to be very strategic, to have that seat at the table, to be the counselors, to really give legal advice, to really help with, complicated deals and complicated legal issues. That's what we want to create, that space so that they can do that. But there's a whole bunch of that other work that we were just talking about that is not that. And so, sometimes we get a little resistance with, well, we just got the seat at the table. We don't want our clients like feeling like we're saying no to them. Go to the spot instead. But I promise you, if the bots work and they're going there for a very specific and quick question, where's this NDA? Am I allowed to do this? Can I do that? Right? Or who is the signature authority for this? They do want to get very fast. They don't want to bother legal with those kinds of things, right? So that's the kind of stuff we're focusing on automating now. And this will clear space so that the attorneys can be very strategic. So I just want to put
Yeah.
that out there. This is not meant to, replace anybody or replace legal judgment or anything like that. It's really designed to automate kind of the stuff that really we should not be spending our time doing.
Yeah, and
So
you're
yeah.
speaking to the classic, I think lawyer hesitancy with a lot of these tools, which is true. You should not let this tool or try to make this tool do everything for you. But you said some of, and that's the key. There is enormous amount of stuff that we do as attorneys that is automatable. Figure out what that is. Give it a shot. And if you can get 60%, great. That's 60% that you don't have to do yourself over and over again every time. And that's an enormous amount of time and effort you can spend elsewhere that you can spend on that white glove approach, right? And so
Totally.
it's that folly always of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. These tools don't have to be perfect to be incredible.
Exactly. Exactly, and if you're struggling with, like, "Well, where do I draw the line? Like, where's my value?" Then that's where I say, ask the question, like, "What is not fun?" Is it fun, like, redirecting 20 people a day to your NDA template? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Right.
so there's a way to figure out, like, and you have to and start small. We always say crawl before you walk and all of that. So just, like, these super simple things, just try it. One really successful one that we've built out is our what we call our red light, green light bot.
Mm.
And so, we built this out specifically for a marketing team at one point, but you can do it for anything at all. And so, legal had all these playbooks built up for marketing. You're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that, no on this, no on that, right? But marketing was struggling with maybe reading and comprehending the playbooks, which I think this scenario will resonate with probably every legal team listening in. And so rather than having them try to interpret the playbook, and again, this could go for sales, anybody. If you got a playbook, this is going to work. We created this red light, yellow light, green light bot where basically marketing submits their materials and the bot says, green light, you're good to go. This meets all the criteria. Legal does not need to review this. Yellow light, you need to do these two things. Then it'll be good to go. Red light, this absolutely needs legal review. And just by nature of doing something like that, that's a huge time saver because otherwise legal is literally looking at everything, and it's never a clean, like, oh, here, legal, please look at, I'm concerned about these three things. It's always just an email, see below, like, and then legal has to go through and sort through everything. And so this was a great way to kind of like get the intake in order. You have to submit it in a certain way and then, it really reduces the amount of, and that's what we want. We don't want legal looking at absolutely everything. We want the guardrails to be in place, but we can now do it in such a way where the guardrails are still there, but legal doesn't have to be looking at every single thing.
Yeah, that's great, Steph. And I'm laughing because I've certainly been guilty of sending to our legal,
The see
like,
below,
see
that
below,
that describes, yeah.
So for all the lawyers and including our own lawyers at the L Suite, I apologize.
Good stuff.
And I have tried to get better about like actually take a look at the edits. I've seen so many of these in our circumstance and instances working with partners to be able to suggest like, yep, here are my thoughts on A, B, and C. Yes, we always say yes to X and we may not say yes to Y, and here's why, right? Like, but doing some of that, but yes, incorporating AI into that process would be super powerful.
Yes.
I'm curious, Steph, given the fact that first, I just want to shout out that I really appreciate how you have, and I've seen this over getting a chance to work with you in the past 2+ years, how you've been able to use AI in just very practical ways, both internally and then advise legal teams on ways in which to do that. A personal favorite of mine was a couple of years back when you were like, hey, for anybody holiday shopping, we took all of the best of lists, Oprah's lists. Here's a bot. You can just get that information so much more quickly. And, me personally, I was like, I love this. I don't have to read through a list of 50, click through 70 ads to take a look
That's
at it.
still one
You
of
know,
my
it's
favorites, yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. But,
I'll resend it to you and we could put it in the notes so
yes,
everybody
please.
can
That would be amazing. Yes,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah. But the thing I wanted to ask is, as you work with legal teams, how do you all set up metrics for success? So many of us are being pushed to use AI, incorporate AI. I'm assuming at this point, if somebody's coming to work with you at UpLevel Ops, there's some world in which AI is already being used at the company. But how do we actually now track and measure and communicate success?
Yes, and it's, some of them, as you can imagine, are straightforward and some not so
Yep.
much, and I'll tell you what, the offsite that was earlier this week, I heard more than I'd ever heard before. Everybody was talking about how they are really getting pushed and to use AI. And
Yep.
it's not just by the general counsel or CLO, it's like by whoever on high, right? Like the CEOs, CFOs, whatever. People are feeling a lot of pressure to implement some kind of AI. And it makes me a little nervous because that's where people start. Here's what happens. They run out and they buy these tools without any, and tools are great. I'm not anti-tool when I'm talking, like this, but without having any kind of understanding of how you're going to deploy them or what you're going to use them for, they're not going to be successful, right? And if people aren't bought in, you can get licenses to some of the best technology in the world. But if people aren't going to use it, then you're really just throwing money out the window. So when I hear people saying like we're getting pressure, so we're just going to run a bunch of pilots, that's also not great because then pilots take time, right? Like now you're taking 3 or 4 hours a week and you're playing with these systems and all of that. So that's why we kind of say like you want to crawl, walk, run. And so that's why we really kind of push people to just try a few custom bots on a simple couple of simple use cases like the ones I've talked about. And then look at, okay, now we're ready. We're doing this. The team is comfortable with AI. They're starting to use it. And we tend, especially for if you're a larger legal team, then you want to have a pilot group. Like take the people, get the coalition of the willing together. So there's people who are really interested and really want to do it. Let's get them into a group. They let's solve for their problems, right? Make it worth their while to be here. They're chasing signatures or they're running around trying to fill out forms. They're filling out all these certain types of, government forms or whatever, and it's taking them forever, right? So like let's solve for a couple of their use cases and then let's look at what technology is going to be best for that. And then maybe it is some off the shelf, right? Maybe it's redlining contracts and custom bots don't do that very well. So like now it is time to start looking at the off the shelf tools and then start rolling them out within that pilot group. And then it kind of catches fire, right? Because we've done this with clients now and people are clamoring. We have one client in particular. I won't name them because they are not ready to go public with their ROI. They will at some point. It's a larger legal team. They have 16 people in their pilot group and using 6 bots. And they estimated, this is not us doing the calculation, they estimated $2.65 million in savings a year. Just what they had to do
Awesome.
is if you wanted to be in this pilot, you had to track roughly how much time you were saving. So if it took you 4 hours a week to do this and now you're doing it in a half hour, that's 3.5 hours savings. So they were responsible. The only way you could get access to the AI is if you agreed to roughly track how much you were saving, right? And so, right, exactly. I love their approach to this. So they estimated $2.65 million in savings. It equaled out to something like 4 additional lawyers to the team that they were not going to get, right? They weren't getting that additional headcount. And the general counsel is like, I would never do my job now without AI. Like she is
Amazing.
completely sold in and, bought into this using AI. And now they've got people kind of not kind of, they're clamoring to get into the pilot group. Their IT team was a little bit more, they were leaning more towards Copilot. We talked them into this pilot to use ChatGPT
Great.
in their instance. And so now IT is even like, yeah, we see that they were running bots side by side and they see the differences. So we kind of just from this pilot program kind of persuaded the whole organization to move in a certain direction, which never happens with legal. Legal doesn't influence the whole company, when it comes to tech purchases, right? And so it really was game changing for them. So I like how they did it where
Yeah.
they started tracking. And there's some automated ways to do that, Anthony, but some of it is going to be manual tracking.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Like if it's like, I'm making this up, but let's say you only do whatever, you're doing a certain type of agreement for your company. You're a contracts attorney and you do a certain type of agreement. Before you were only able to get through 10 a month. Now you could get through 20 a month. That's a number, obviously, you can calculate through your
Amazing.
contracting system or
Yeah.
what have you. But some of it is going to be like, no, I used to spend, again, 5 hours a week doing this and now it's down to 1 hour. And so that's, I think the best way right now. It's going to be how you calculate that metric is going to be a little bit different for everything you're doing, but track, 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 track. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's really critical.
Steph, I love what you're sharing. And I want to just flag for folks that this is, if anything, that they can take away from our first season is a lot of what you've shared. And I want to maybe call in some of the things you shared earlier and we've heard from other people. First being, yes, the pressure is real. Everyone is being required to use AI, but please do not just run and throw a bunch of things at the wall. I think so much of what Zach and I have heard is, in as much as you would onboard a new employee and walk them through the tasks that they have to do, think about small tasks that you can hand over to AI. And I love some of the examples you shared earlier. And then second, I just want to call out the incredible power and amazing that your client did this and being very intentional about rolling it out across the organization depending on size, and also thinking through how you can really track and communicate ROI and the impact that it's having. I think so much of that is missed, even in something as small as I used to be able to do this task or this project and the output was X. And now because of AI, the output's actually 3X, 4X, 5X.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. I think that's super, super rich. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said, and to add to that, as you're speaking, Steph, the thing that comes to mind for me in so many ways is, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Because what you're describing is the promise and folly of failed change management, of adopting a tool and getting it wrong, and it's super dangerous with AI. I would say for at least two reasons that I see, and you probably see a dozen more. One is that because of the way that AI works, there's this temptation to not think of it as adopting this whole set of technologies, this whole way of doing things, because it's so simple. You just query it. Surely it's as easy as just bringing ChatGPT on board and using it. And of course, it's so much more than that. There's so much more thinking that needs to go into how we use these tools well. There's so much potential to get ourselves in trouble. So we don't treat it like the change management project that it actually may be. And of course, in any change management situation, if you get it wrong, you build resentment on your team. People think, oh, we tried that and it didn't work. And with AI, if you do that, you're years behind. So you really got to get this right,
Yeah.
because if you don't, that train moves fast. This is not a 60-mile-per-hour train. This is a hyper train.
Yeah.
So you want to get this right when you move on it.
I actually wanted to talk about that earlier, and the thought left my head, and you're bringing me right back to it. That is exactly right, Zach. This is something. Look, I've had my share of failures, doing this for as long as I've been doing this in system implementations, and thinking the team needed something, and they trying to shove something down their throats that they just didn't want, right? And it doesn't work. It's not my will, it's thy will, right? Like really, you're as an ops manager, you're there to serve them and to deliver what they need, right? Whether you yeah, it's just we have opinions, but we're really we have to be of service to our legal teams. And when you look at AI, it is particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Like you have to be especially careful with that because other tools like legal teams are used to using other tools, right? They understand contract management, they understand e-billing. Those have been around a long time. AI is new. I couldn't agree with you more. They see something hallucinate or it doesn't work in the way they think it's going to work and forget it. And then trying to win those hearts and minds back is really really tough. And so that's why I think the legal tools out there are good and they're getting better by the day,
Mhm.
clearly, right? But you don't have to start with a complicated legal tool. And that's why we always kind of say, let's start with something that it's not very low risk. And again, it's stuff that you guys shouldn't be wasting your time doing anyway, right? So that's why if you can start there, they will graduate to those other more sophisticated tools and then where you're also buying yourself a little bit of time too, and the tools are only getting better. So I think you're there's kind of a you're it's a win-win because you're delaying getting these sophisticated tools on board for a few months, but the tools will be you'll be more mature and ready for it, and then the tools will also be better. So that's kind of the approach we take, right or wrong. And as you think about these agents, it's so funny because I'll talk to legal teams and they're like they may have an AI ban or they're coming off of an AI ban. And they're like want to dive they were 6 months ago they're like, oh no, we can't use Claude or Chat GPT. And now I talk to them 6 months later, they're like, we want agentic AI. I'm like, you guys, you really want all these agents running around your computer? You don't even know what they're doing, making changes on their own. Like, let's slow your roll a little and start with, something a little more simple. I mean, the agents are coming. Obviously, you see like Claude's Anthropic has the workspaces. And I think, that's undeniable, but you don't have to start there with something crazy that you don't understand how it works yet. You really want to make sure you're controlling these things because they do make changes. We have on our team Brandy, who Anthony, I think you met at some point.
Yes.
She's our innovation expert and she's always, trying these new things out. And she was even like, I had to like basically pull the plug because it was making all these changes that I didn't authorize it to do, and so she's testing out all these things for us. So there's certain things that you want to kind of slow roll a little bit, I think, so we get our arms around it. But there's so much. So that there's a ton of potential, don't get me wrong, but there's so much you can do with just the basic stuff that we all really have access to right now.
So, Steph, one thing that comes up a lot in our conversations about AI is the worry, of course, about its effect on jobs. And I think that's always in my mind is what are the jobs that AI is likely to create, maybe already creating that we haven't really conceived of. And one of those that I think about is the rise of the legal engineer. And I'm curious if you have thoughts on what this role looks like. Is this something that in your mind kind of grows out of legal ops, is parallel to it, comes from some other place? How do you see kind of the legal engineer role in the context of all this work that you're doing, and in the context of the progression of AI?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. And I've been since AI came out, right? Since, ChatGPT came out in 2022, I've been saying this is a huge opportunity. We're the only ones. Like we should be the ones focusing on this, right? This should be squarely in our wheelhouse as operations experts, and we should be the ones, really running the whole program for our legal teams. And what's interesting about the kind of AI engineers, the legal operations engineer kind of mindset is like if I would have thought that I would have had to go to engineering school 30 years ago, right? That was not happening. I definitely don't have the brain for that. But now we're in this place where AI is new to everybody. Yes, there are experts out there, but we all have the opportunity to be equally experts in this because it is new to
Right.
all of us. We are all learning as we're going. We even tell legal teams that we work with, like we're experimenting with this as much as you are. Like we're all kind of beta testers and all this as we build out custom bots and all of that. And so I think that is a huge opportunity for all of us. You don't have to be, I mean, I think all of us at this point have vibe coded and have written, yeah, we've all written Python applications and HTML. And I certainly could not have done that without AI telling me exactly what to do. And so I think it really leveled the playing field for all of us. And so I think every one of us has the opportunity to become, I mean, you don't have to call yourself an AI expert by any means, but really knowledgeable in this area. And I think because AI, how it functions, it really does allow for all of us to really become the experts in our departments anyway. And so I think you could call it whatever you want, Zach. You could call it, an engineering resource or what have you, but it should fall under operations. And, I think it just, I don't know. Does that make sense? I think we
Yeah.
we all have the ability now to do that just
100%.
because it's so accessible to all of us.
Yep. Yeah. Steph, we always like to close things out by having like an A to Z moment, so to speak. And for today, I'm really curious because we've talked a lot about how we use AI. So I'd love to hear from you on an AI habit that you now have that you cannot live without.
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it, Anthony, earlier, the client management
Yeah.
and being able to, at my fingertips, know every single thing about my client. I mean, I've had some clients that I've been working with for several years, right? And there is just no possibility that I would be able to remember everything about them. People have come and gone in the department. There's been org changes. And just being able to literally have every time I'm going to have a client call, I have their bot open on the other screen so that I'm able to query it. The GCs, I forgot what system are they using for this or what is their CFO's name? He was asking about this last time we talked. I literally have all of that at my fingertips, and
Great.
it makes me now I'm giving away my secret. So when clients hear this, they're going to be like, "Oh, she's not as sharp as as she comes across." But having that knowledge management piece to me is so I would be devastated if I had to try to go back, and I would appear 10 IQ points lower than I am if I had to go back to a manual process at this point. So that's a game changer for me, and just being able to
Amazing.
coalesce all the information is and then running through, like, when one thing we didn't talk about is what not to rely on AI for, but one thing I
Yep.
don't do is I don't let it, make my decisions or give the
Great.
advice, right? That still has to come from me. But then being able to run it through and say, "Am I missing anything?" And I always am missing something. Yeah, the GC was really talking about this and you didn't address that. And so then to be able to go ahead and do that, it makes my work product so much more complete and holistic. And so I for from that perspective, I could not give AI up for that.
It's great. Well, we'll end with a version of the exact same question that we always end the show with, and that is, if someone listening, let's say one of the companies that you work with, were to try just one thing, you've mentioned a few times, start small. What would be the start small thing that you
Yeah.
would recommend they try?
Yeah, one thing that we always teach people if we're teaching them how to do a bot, a really, really simple one that it's super useful. I use mine pretty much every day is a simple writing assistant. And so taking a custom, it's very easy to build out a custom gem or a custom GPT where you just take a bunch of writing samples. So emails, if you've written white papers, if you've any style of your writing, and then you build this bot and you say, I prefer to write with a slightly more casual tone. Or but if I'm writing formally, here's some samples of, my more formal writing, etc. And then I also trained mine on legal operations. So I have a bunch of presentations I've done over the years on what is legal ops and, blah, blah, blah. So this bot is trained on legal operations and it's trained on my writing style. So when I'm trying to draft something, it will write it. But I use it for a lot of client communications, right? Like I'm trying to tell the client these two great pieces of information, maybe one that's a little bit more sensitive and harder, and it will like spit out this amazing, email that I barely need to edit. And that saves me a ton of time. I would have spent an hour wordsmithing it to make sure it sounded perfect. I don't want to offend anybody, all of that. And it does such a great job with tone.
It's fantastic.
It's awesome. Steph, this has been incredible. Love all the resources and insights. I'm walking away with some things that I want to start doing on my team. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Always a pleasure to see you. Always a delight to get to chat with you. Thank you so much for
This
staying.
is really fun. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steph.